Guruve Gaurachandraya Dharikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat Pranam devotees, hopefully everyone took advantage yesterday of the secular idea of Thanksgiving and showed their appreciation and thanks to Hari Guru and Vaishnav. My wife has maintained a tradition for now about 20 years to serve some Vaishnavas in the community each year by inviting them to our home and cooking sumptuously to try to please the Vaishnavas. So she maintained doing that yesterday. I'm always very grateful to her for her service to Hari Guru and Vaishnavas over the course of the so many years that I've been fortunate to have her as a partner in bhakti. So I did not get a chance to do any questions and answers over the last couple of days, and there were a couple of questions and answers. One that's sort of older, which I'll maybe put at the end of this particular video, and though the subjects are not really necessarily directly compatible, because bhakti is an absolute principle, then everything has relation to bhakti. It's mentioned in the chapter Shlokya Bhagavatam, Ritayartam Yat Pariyata Na Pariyata Chatmani Tadvyat Atmanu Mayam. If you see something and you cannot see its connection to bhakti, then you should know it to be the Atma Maya, means Bhagavan's Maya. So everything has some relation to bhakti, and having perspective on how something is related to bhakti is called maturation in bhakti. So the two subject matters I wanted to talk about was a question that was, and again I'm paraphrasing, I have my phone but I'm not on Messenger, so I'm not looking at the questions directly. One was a pretty simple question which I'll put at the end, not that the answer is necessarily simple, but certainly the question was pretty straightforward, and that's, I've spoken about something called social engineering, exactly what is that and how it relates to devotees. So I'll put that at the end. Again, sometimes we speak about pragmatic subjects, just as how Srila Prabhupada and the rest of our Guru Vargas have done. They've commented on contemporary and social issues and its application or misapplication in relation to bhakti. So I've followed in the footsteps of our previous acharyas and sometimes have spoken about pragmatic issues. But the more pertinent question for me was asked by one devotee who asked about a class that I had given, I guess it was quite some time ago, on the idea of Sat Sanatana Goswami Pad's question to Sriman Mahaprabhu, Kayami Kenyamai Jare Tapat Prai. Sanatana Goswami Mahaprabhu asked for our welfare, who am I and why am I suffering? And so I think I'd given a pretty elaborate class on that. Now maybe an older class and probably on the YouTube channel, it would probably take some digging to pull it up. But I'm just answering in brief here again the nature of the deeper understanding of what it means to ask that question and what's the relevance in a deeper sense of bhakti of the answer. Again, Sanatana Goswami Pad in Sanatana Siksha and Chaitanya Charitamrita, he asked the question that's probably the most important question for anyone in the human form of life. It's mentioned in Vedanta Sutra, Tato Bhama Jigyasya. In the human form of life, because there's capacity in the consciousness to understand the self, then making an inquiry into Brahman, or the absolute truth, is the essential duty in the human form of life. So devotees are very fortunate in that if you are practicing bhakti, it means that at some point or another this question arose, and in some particular level of practice, you begin to answer that question. So devotees are at many different levels of practice, from the beginning of nourishing faith to having reposed that faith at the lotus feet of a sadhu and understood the depth of what it means to be in sadhu sangha, and then to be practicing bhajan genuinely, having received instruction in bhajan from Sadguru and from sadhus, and also realizing the Kriya Shakti of Bhagavan and how it's present in the bhajan practice. All these things are gradual levels of unfoldment in bhakti. So, but the question, who am I, is also sometimes called mati. Mati means the sign of discrimination. When a jiva is inspired to inquire about their identity beyond the gross and subtle identity that they've acquired in any particular karmic iteration. The particular karmic identity we have is called an upadi. Under the influence of avidya, and I've spoken this many times, so I'll just do it in brief. Avidya has 5 features. The avidya itself, and that avidya means the absence of knowledge about our own swarup. Here the word swarup means our very nature of not being material. And then a deeper understanding of swarup is called visesh sambandha gyan, which is clear understanding of my spiritual identity and my own transcendental roop, name, etc. So I'll get to that point, but just in the very beginning, the meaning is here that avidya is a lack of understanding what is my even nature, that I am spiritual, I'm not a material entity. So avidya produces the effect called asmita. Asmita means I am, right? Because everybody has a natural sense of existence that can't be eradicated. The actual nature of the soul is that it is eternal. Mamamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. The Atma is an individual anksha called Vibhinangsha of Bhagavan, and they are sanatana, they're eternal. So there is no question of the non-existence of the soul or the Atma. But when asmita arises, the asmita or I am is in relation to not the soul and not the Atma, but it's in relation to the particular karmic identity that's been acquired. Karma is produced by prior actions and aspirations. So in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is made clear. Karmana, Daivana, Natrena, Janta, Dehopapatye, Sri Utrupavishta, Pungsam Reta Kanarsaya. That by the relation between man and woman, when semen is released and it enters into the womb of a woman, it produces a particular direct, Karmana, Daivana, Natrena means it's a direct and exact accord with the previous life's activities and the previous life's aspirations. That's exactly how, what family you're born to, what particular caste, social status, every single thing about your manifestation in this world is a direct manifestation of your karma playing itself out in this iteration. So, the upadi that you acquire is called asmita. I am this upadi. Means I am John Doe, or whatever your name is, whatever family you're born to, etc., etc. So, because that now brings up a duality between the actual self, which is the Atma, the eternal part and parcel of Bhagavan, and an acquired identity that's a vicarious experience of the Atma's relationship with the 3 modes of material nature through the false egoism, then a duality arises, because it's almost like I've mentioned this before, like a kind of schizophrenia, that I'm actually a spiritual being, but I'm identifying with this karmic iteration as the subtle and gross material identity I have. So this asmita gives rise to the duality called rag and dvesh. So rag here means attachment to our self-interest. Dvesh means aversion to anything that doesn't align with the self-interest born from false egoism. And the false egoism is couched in the ahamkara. I mentioned this before. This is actually a lot of repetition because I've definitely mentioned these things many times. Ahamkara means aham, I am, the karana, cause, and karta, doer of everything in my purview. And the natural sequential result of that is I'm the cause, I'm the doer, so therefore I'm the enjoyer. Right? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Jagya Tapasam that he is the true enjoyer. So now the false idea that I am the enjoyer arises, my self-interest becomes prominent, and in this way it obfuscates my ability to perceive my actual nature. So now an inextricable connection based on that is established. It is called Abhinavesh. So these are the features of Avidya Shakti. So when we ask the question, who am I? The question itself is begging to break that inextricable connection with the material energy. And the reason it's inextricable is because it cannot be done by one's own effort. The question arises to give stimulation to search out an answer. So in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned there, Anadi Avidya Yuktasha. This connection with the Avidya Shakti is Anadikal. It means it's from time without any beginning. You cannot trace out a beginning. So in most of Srila Prabhupada's books, the term time immemorial was used because it was just a simplistic way of describing Anadikal. Srila Jiva Goswami in Tattva-sandarbha, he's given a definition of Anadikal. It literally means time without any beginning. You understand? So here, the Jiva is now raising the question, how can I break this inextricable connection that I've had since Anadikal? So, Anadi Vidya Yuktasha Purushasya Vedatmanam, right? So, Purushasya Vedatmanam means the nature of the Jiva to understand, well, listen, there's definitely something else besides this karmic iteration and the playing of the three modes of material nature, etc., etc. So then what happens is, when the question arises, if a person is greatly fortunate, which will come from previous spiritual samskars, they will turn to a sadhu to answer that question. So swatona sambhavanti. So swatona means I can't extricate myself. My intellectual facility, my physical facility, etc. is not giving me the ability to get free from this illusory connection with the material world. So swatona sambhavanti anya, but another person can do it. Who is that? So that raises the question, well, who is that person, which creates the search part of asking that question. Where can I find and in whom can I find knowledge and instruction how to get out of this material entanglement? So then, Gyanatva Gyanado Bhavet. So it says here that the only person most certainly who can perform this task is that person is Gyanatva. Gyanatva Dhanavad Sudashan Prabhuji. So the person who can perform that task is Gyanatva. It means Shri Guru and Sadhu. Because Shri Guru and the Sadhu, they are truly Gyanatva. Because Gyanatva here means who has knowledge of the absolute truth. Jiva Goswami Pad described sadhus as Sadnoti Sadayati Cha Krishna Prema Iti Sadhu. That the person who has knowledge of the absolute reality, which is Krishna Prema, that is the highest class of sadhu. There are many levels of sadhu, but the highest class of sadhu is that person who's understood Krishna Prema and realized Krishna Prema. So, Gyanada means they have the Karun Shakti, means the compassionate disposition to give that knowledge to those who are desirous of it. Understand? This is the nature of, I was describing the other day, different levels of devotees. So the level at which devotees preach, true established in maturation devotees preach, is called Madhyam Bhagavat. So that's described, Prema, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. They have four qualities. Because the highest class of Vaishnava does not see the material energy in its material configuration. Savabhutam Yapa said, Bhagavam Bhavam Atmanaha. They see through the prism of their own internal mood. So they don't see that jivas are in Maya, etc., etc. Right? And there are many cases of that, like Vamsidas Babaji, many other high class of Vaishnavas in our history, who were completely absorbed internally and did not make distinctions, what's material, what's this and that. They were completely situated internally. So in order to preach effectively and continuously, because it doesn't mean that those who are preaching in the platform of Madhyam Bhagavat, which I just described, Ishwaritara Dineshu, Balisheshu, Disatvacha, they recognize there are those persons who are innocent, those persons who are envious, and they recognize those who are already practicing devotion, and they create maitri or friendship with them, and they have love for Bhagavan. Here Jiva Goswami says this means praying starting from the level of ruchi going. They become fit people to preach. So Gyanadha means they also have compassion. And compassion means doyahi. The word doya means mercy. So doyahi swarta apeksha paradukha asahishnuta. Asahishnuta means to tolerate something. Asahishnuta means the inability to tolerate paradukha, the suffering of others, becomes the impetus by which these persons who are situated in sadhutva, means in true sadhu life, that they cannot tolerate the suffering of others. So, swarta apeksha, they give up their personal interest, means they have no self-interest anyway. They're truly paramoni matsuranam satam, like in the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. They have no self-interest. But above and beyond that, they have this compassion for the jivas who are suffering in this world. So swarta apeksha, doya hi swarta apeksha. Doya means those who've given up their own self-interest in pursuit of helping those who are suffering in this world because they cannot tolerate to see that suffering. So now, Gyanatva Gyanado Bhavet, the person who makes the inquiry, who am I, now turns to a bona fide sadhu to answer that question. When the sadhu answers the question, as Mahaprabhu did for Sanatana Goswami, he tells, Jivara Surupaya Krishnera Nitya Dasha. Your original identity is not based in the term aham, but is based in the term das. So what is the difference between aham and das? That's the first clarity one should want to come to. So aham means again, false egoism, because every time we say I, my, it is indicative of false ego. I am this person, this is my wife, my house, my car. You understand? So the entire aham mameti principle is always going to be the symbol, just like a fever is the symptom of dis-ease or some kind of physical issue, right? A fever or some other symptoms may be there according to whatever the medical issue is. But you take those symptoms as something to be checked out. So we have to constantly think, when we're thinking about who am I, that anytime we have the mentality of I in mind, we should see that the symptom of the material disease is present. And we should immediately put a halt to things, take the appropriate protocols, which we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Harinam Sankirtan, Sadhu Sangha, right? Maturavas, Shri Mutta Shradai Sevan, right? These are the principles. So 5 things primarily. Nam Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha, Bhagavat Sravan, means hearing Hari Katha, right? Based on Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our Mool Granth, right? Maturavas means having the mind that I'm not part of this material world, I'm part of the spiritual world. The highest element of the spiritual world means Mathura Mandala, means Braj. You understand? Or Vrindavan. Right? And Shri Mutta Shradai Sevan. Shri Guru has mercifully established the presence of Bhagavan in this world, that I can engage my senses, which in and of themselves would not have access to Bhagavan. Attaha Sri Krishna Namani Nabhavat Grayam Indriya. Right? That the gross senses, they have no access to Bhagavan. But Sevan Mukhi Hi Jivado, but beginning with the tongue by Harinam, Sevan Mukh, when by the instruction of Guru and the mercy of Guru we become Sevan Mukh, means the tendency for serving Bhagavan, or Krishna Seva Vasan, then Shri Guru manifests the transcendental form of the Acha Vigraha to accept our service while we're growing in bhakti. So these 5 things are the protocols of medicine to cure the ahamameti disease. You understand? And establish us in the truth of being the das of Bhagavan. Now, in the description I said, what is the deeper aspect of this idea of being the das of Krishna? Or what does it mean to understand more deeply, who am I? So, being the das of Krishna is not really our direct individual identity. It is our constitutional identity. Everyone is the das of Krishna, whether they know it or not. It doesn't require knowledge to be the das of Krishna. Those who don't have that awakening or that experience, that means they're in the illusory Maya. That's all, but they can't change being das of Krishna. You understand? In the verse, Mamavamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatan, it's there. That Sanatan, your position of being Jiva Shakti and the das of Krishna, that's permanent. Mahaprabhu also said, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem. No. Jivara Sarup Hoye Krishna Nitya Das. The dasata to Krishna is Nitya. It's not something you can change. But the dasatva is not a identity in relation to Krishna. So therefore, constitutionally, I am a das of Krishna. Shri Guru then will awaken what is called Visesh Sambandha Gyan. Samanya Sambandha Gyan means I'm the das of Krishna. Constitutionally, that is my identity. My very nature is composed of that. But the Shri Guru, he or she will give Visesh Sambandha Gyan. And what does the word Visesh mean? It means the specific identity and relationship you have in relation to God. That is called Visesh Sambandha Gyan. That Visesh Sambandha Gyan is given in the form of a mantra, like in the seed form in the Diksha mantras. Jiva Goswami has mentioned, Divya Gyanam Yantra Shimanti Mantre Bhagavat Sarup Gyanam Tenam Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Gyanamscha. So Visesh Sambandha Gyan here means, who is my Ishtadev? There are many forms of Bhagavan. Narasingha, Ramachandra, Varaha, I mentioned Ramachandra Bhagavan. Varaha I've already mentioned. Narasingha Dev I've already mentioned. But there's unlimited forms of God. Shri Krishna in Mathura, Shri Krishna in Dwarka, Shri Krishna in Braj. You understand? So there are many forms of Bhagavan. What is the particular form of Bhagavan that is my eternally established Ishtadev? Means my eternally established worshipable objective. And in maturation in bhakti, that becomes important, because even though by tattva we understand that Shri Krishna, what is this verse? Ramari Moteshu Kala Niyamina Tishtan. Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kentum. Brahma Samhita, it's mentioned. Krishna is the source of all the incarnations. Every incarnation is also coming from Krishna. But we don't have a relationship internally in Visesh Sambandha Gyan with every form of Bhagavan. You understand? We have a particular relationship with a form of Bhagavan. That one form of Bhagavan is all the other forms of Bhagavan, but in our consciousness, just like, I'm giving an example to make this more digestible. So, there are many, many women in the world. But any gentleman marries one woman. You don't marry womanhood. You understand? So, your wife is a woman and there's billions of other women. You understand? But you have a relationship with one woman. In the same way, there are unlimited forms of Bhagavan. Bhagavatam says, as many, just like waves in the ocean, there's unlimited incarnations. Both Shakya Vesh, direct manifestations, Prabhav Vilas, Prabhav Prakash, Vaibhav Vilas, Vaibhav Prakash. Unlimited manifestations of Bhagavan. But we have relationship with one form of Bhagavan, and that particular relationship is the Nitya Siddha Bhav that each individual soul has the potential to have. So, how that particular individual potential relationship is realized is when the Diksha mantras are given by Sadguru, then one practices bhajan according to that particular seedling of knowledge of your Visesh Sambandha Gyan. But then the question comes, Mukunda, but how do I know which one it is? There you have to know the meaning of the Diksha mantras. The Diksha mantras themselves are revelatory in their power of that particular relationship. If you want to worship Sri Narayana Vaikuntha, then the Diksha mantra is given at the time of our Gaudiya line Vaishnav initiation coming in the line of Mahaprabhu. You will see that those mantras are directly geared towards Sri Krishna and Braj. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm not telling anything secret here, it's mentioned clearly in Ramananda Samvad. Vrindavane apakrita navina madan Kam Bij Kam Gayatri Yandra Upasan. That the Kam Gayatri mantra which we're chanting is meant for the Upasan of Vrindavane apakrita navina madan. It means the ever fresh form of Cupid. Deeper meaning here is Navina Madan means how Krishna has become ever fresh, ever new. In Tattva Gata Vichar, you can say it's the nature of Krishna that he's ever fresh. But how his experience is ever fresh is described by Rupa Goswami Padit Ujjalini Mani. Saranu Bhuta Kuryo Yam Nava Nava Priyam. Rago Anubhava Nava Navaha. So he's saying that the state of love, called Anurag, this is a description of Anurag in Ujjalin Mani. Saranubhuta Kuryoyam Nava Nava Priyam. The beloved becomes newer and newer by the influence of the rag itself. The rag itself becomes newer, the love becomes newer, and presents the beloved as newer. So here the meaning of Navina Madan, or that transcendental form of Cupid who becomes newer and newer, is couched in this mood called Anurag. This Anurag is an exclusive mood of the gopis of Vrindavan. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is told in our sudden bhajan, right? Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tad Dhamma Vrindavana Ramyaskaschit Upasana Vrajavadu Vargena Yakalpita. Our mood is the mood of service in the wake of those gopis of Vrindavan. This is the general mood of worship in the line coming from Mahaprabhu. Other Braj Ras is also present, especially Sakya Ras is also present there. You understand? And Vatsalya Rasa is also present there. The full manifestation of Vatsalya Ras will be more deeply experienced, for instance, in the Nimbarka Sampradaya. You understand? Because it directly manifests more the worship of Balakrishna, but also in the line of Mahaprabhu we see Vatsalya Prem is also there. Some Sakya Prem is also there. You can see in the writings of Nayananda Thakur, Preo Bhakti Ras. And you can see even among the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there are those who had affinity for Sakya Rasa. Predominant mood. And the Guru Parampara that we're coming in all have this mood of following service in the wake of the gopis, in particularly what is called Tat Tat Bhava Ichchamayi, means the mood held by the Manjaris of Srimati Radhika. Understand? Therefore we also call Rupanuga. Rupanuga means those who are not only following the path of Rag Marg, because to obtain the mood of service to Krishna in Vrindavan requires being on the path of Rag Marg. It's clearly mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sakale Jagate More Vari Bhakti Vraja Bhakti Vraja Bhakti. No, what is it? Sakale Jagate More Vari Bhakti Vraja Bhav Paiti Nahi Shakti. That in Vairi Marg, which means the idea of following rules and regulations, it is intended for obtaining Vaikuntha. You cannot attain the moods of Braj by this mood strictly of Vairi Bhakti. Some people get this confused to think that that means there's no rules and regulations in Raganuga Bhakti. No. Shravanam Kirtanandini, Vairi Bhakti Sudanti too. We follow rules and regulations, but the aspirational goal is that we will obtain the mood of service in Vrindavan. Understand? So those vidhis, those rules and regulations, are only accepted in as much as they are favorable to the practice of bhakti. For instance, Raghunath Das Goswami, he is the author of our special Bhajan Parati. There are many Bhajan Paratis. I was giving class on Shishastakam recently, and I spoke. Gaur Govindachan Smartan Parati is a very well-known Bhajan Parati. But also Rag Vatma Chandrika, Prem Bhakta Chandrika. Even if you look closely at Upadeshamritam, Shishastakam Mahaprabhu, certainly. They're all Bhajan Paratis. Right? But two became prominent. Of course, Rosh Shashtakam is also prominent. All these are prominent. But two became prominent in the line. One coming in the line of Akeshwara Pandit to Gopal Guru Goswami to Dhyana Chandra Goswami, which is the Gaur Govind Archan Smaran Parati. The other was the Antara Pant, means the internal process, which was written by our Raghunath Das Goswami, coming in the line of Swarup Damodar Goswami from Mahaprabhu. So Manusiksha is a very important book for us. Very important book. In the second verse, there he says, Na damam na adaram shrutikanam niruktam kilam kuru. Don't become attached to Vaidya in the sense of doing dharma and considering what is adharma, but simply take up the profuse worship of the objective of your heart, Shri Shri Radha Krishna in Braj. So this is how to perform Raganuga Bhakti. Paricharayam aprachur paricharayam. Prachur paricharayam means profuse worship in the mood shown by our Goswami Varga. So how Rup Goswami is written, how our acharyas have written, we take up in that mood, doing bhajan. Understand? So the deeper, again, understanding here then is that the Visesambandha Gyan is given in the Diksha mantras, and how will I know? Which is the question I was answering. Because it's in the mantras themselves. in the Gopal mantra as well, right? It gives the conclusion in our line of Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha. I am fully surrendering to the worshipable objective of that person who's Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha. You understand? So like this, and hearing Harikatha, because Mahaprabhu, when he was speaking to Sanatana Goswami, he also told, Malikana se bija ropan, shravanam kirtane jale, karye shikon. You take the seed of the Diksha mantra that's received from Guru. Brahmanda Brahmati Kon Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Poi, Bhakti, Lata and Bij. So Bhakti Lata means Krishna Seva Vasan, the actual practice of bhajan life. The Bij of that is Mati. Who am I and why am I? This is the Bij. And when we're getting this question answered, it leads to Krishna Seva Vasan. So he told, take this seed and plant it and water it by Shravan and Kirtan, means hearing and chanting, especially Harikatha. Because through hearing the Harikatha, Satam Prasanga Mama Vir Samvido Bhavanti Rit Karna Rasanaya Katha Tajosa Rasu Apavagavatmani Shraddha Rati Bhakti Anukramishiti. In a crumb, starting with faith, which goes all the way up to Rati or Bhav, because the ideal in sudden bhajan, the goal is Bhav Bhakti. Then in practicing Bhav Bhakti, it will become Prem Bhakti. So this will happen by hearing in Prasanga. Prasanga here means Prakrishtupain Sangha. In an absolute sense, fully surrendered, hearing from a qualified person, Harikatha, then Mama Virya, the Shakti of Bhagavan, Bhagavan's own power, it's called Swarup Shakti, it will Bhavanti Rit. It will come in the heart and expand. Just like in verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. What is this verse? Shri Brahma Hridayadi Tavi. No, what is this verse? Janmadhyasayata Anvari Taracha Chartisya Vigya Sarat. Tene Brahma Hridayadi Kavye Muyanti Yatsuriyoho. So Tene, the word Tene comes from the word Tanoti. Tanoti means to expand. So when Harikatha enters the heart, just as Brahma heard the Chatur Shloke, you understand? And everything expanded in his heart. You understand? In the same way, when you hear Harikatha, Bhavanti Rit, right? It expands in the heart and then it manifests on the ear. Some people think it goes in the ear and goes to the heart. But remember, when in conditional life, when we pick up something through our senses, the first processing mechanism is the ahamkara, the mind and the intelligence, which is still contaminated by material energy. So if the spiritual sound vibration had to be filtered through those things, it would not produce in the same way. Now, when one is not Saranagat, that happens actually. Then the knowledge enters the ear and we process it through false egoism, etc. So the full efficacy of that knowledge does not manifest. But when we are truly Saranagat, Anukulisha Sankapya Pratikulisha Vivajana, Rakshishati Vishwas, Kokrvevaranam Tata, Manachep Karpanya, etc., Saranga Saranagati, when we're truly Saranagat, then that knowledge actually penetrates directly to the soul. It bypasses the filters of the material mind and intelligence and false egoism and directly illuminates, tanoti, or expands in the heart, creating realization. That realization reverberates on the senses and appears as, oh, that Harikatha was so sweet to hear. So there's a difference between hearing through the ear and hearing in the heart. When you hear in the heart, this is called Shruta Ikshita Pant, the path of seeing through hearing. Because in the heart, revelation comes. You understand? And when that revelation overflows and permeates our consciousness completely, then the ears become satisfied, and then when the fullest sense, when it permeates the body, premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena, then the eyes become covered with the overflow of those realizations in the heart and produces premanjana, an anjana on the eye of prem. You understand? And thereof, even with these eyes, one will see darshan of one's worshipful objective. You understand? But before that will come Shrutik Shitapant, the path of hearing and seeing through the revelation in the heart. Understand? So, as we go along this process, the natural unfoldment also of our own spiritual identity takes place. And eventually, in the most mature stage, in Bhavavas, it'll be known in even a Shakti, right? Because in a Bhas of everything comes onto the Chitta. But in Bhavavas, it fully manifests by the descent of Swarup Shakti. Mention Sudha Sattva Visheshatma Prem Syangsa Samanga Ruchi Bis Chittamasranya. The particular ruchi means a particular desired kind of seva or bista that we've nourished from lifetimes but have become mature now. That seva bista melts away the ahamkar, the mental and intellectual material facility, and avibhuyat manovrito, vrajayate tatsarupatam. It takes completely over the functions of the chitta. You understand? This Swarup Shakti takes over the functions of the chitta and reveals the particular form which is just suitable to that kind of seva, bista, or ruchi that you had for service towards Bhagavan. And then the 11 things, Nam, Rup, Vyas, Vesh, Yutta, Agyay, Seva, Agyay, Seva, Sambandha, Palyadhasi Bhava, Nivasakaha. Every single element of your Swarup will then become known. 11, this is called Ekadas Bhav. These 11 things will become known. Right? One I left out, Parakashta. Means your ultimate ideal of service to Radha and Krishna. Right? So all of these will manifest after descent. They'll be known in a Shakti and they'll descend in Bhavavas. And the hints of all these things will manifest in Visesham Bandhagyan by the influence of Swarup Shakti, the Prabhava Swarup Shakti, while one is seriously practicing bhajan in anugatya of true sadhus. So this is the deeper meaning of who am I. Having spent a little more time on this, I'm not going to deal with the other subject matter, plus I think it would be a de-escalation of consciousness to deal with that. I was trying to just include the two questions, but I will deal with this other question about social engineering on another day. I don't want to, this would be like rasabas almost, like putting salt in sweet rice, to speak about these very wonderful things regarding our unfoldment in bhakti, then have to speak about its connection to the mundanity of how social engineering works. So we'll save that for another day. My Dandavat Pranam to all the devotees, Guru Karuna Prabhu, Arjun Prabhu, Sham Prabhu, so many devotees who are on listening now. Please give me your mercy and blessings to go on serving Hari Guru and Vaishnava. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Shindavevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.